Hey guys, what is up? AwesomeTheSauce here, and welcome to a video that, it's a bit of a controversy, but it has to be made. So I think, as you might have seen on social media, Twitter, like literally, I don't know, like everything, there's been quite an explosive reaction to the recent test realm, and I think there are two parts to it. PvP and pet trading. We're going to talk about pet trading today, but there will be a PvP video tomorrow, so let's get right into it. Now, before I get right into it, like I normally would, I gotta get something off my chest, alright? There's a lot of tweets saying a lot of things about what they don't like about the pet update and why I'm the one person that's to blame for this. Now, I'm not really gonna, I'm not in the habit of calling people out, but here's just a few tweets to prove my point. So let's get this right out of the way. I didn't know about this pet trading update until about 24 hours ago. So if people want to continue lying on social media, they can go ahead and do that. But while they complain like children, I'm going to make a video that details out my thoughts and how I think there's good things, bad things, fixes, you know, what you're used to. But I will say this, if you really think that a corporation with tons and tons of developers get all their ideas from one person, and if you even think that one person should even have that much power in general, you're just sorely mistaken. No one person has all the answers that can fix everything, and no one person has that much power in something that involves this many people. The reason I make these videos, the reason I give my feedback, and the reason I even play this game is to make this game better for tons and tons of people. So before anyone makes any accusations about me trying to make pet trading harder for people, I want you to do two things. One, I want you to show me how many hatch peppers you have from all the pets that you put in the kiosk. You know, I have 87, and this is after crafting multiple pearls, multiple hatch elixirs. You know, I just want to see how many people with all these overpowered pets that it might be a little harder to make now have actually shared those pets in the kiosk. And the other thing, I'd love to see how on your YouTube channel for several years, weekly, you've done a weekly pet hatching giveaway so that more and more people could have pets in this game so they could PvP. I'm sure you've done that too. Because, I mean, if I'm the one making it harder with my input for people to train pets, there's no way I would do a weekly pet giveaway for years and years on end, right? No, I mean, that would just make no sense. Like, I normally don't get angry about people, you know, just randomly subtweeting about me because, you know, I have better things to do with my time. But I don't know, man, the way that people are acting, like I'm selfishly giving input to anybody so that it might be better for me and not for others. I don't understand what universe you live in. I don't understand. I really don't. And I would really appreciate if for a second you can use your brain before, you know, clicking the tweet button. But let's go into pet trading and why I think this is such a controversy. Let's get right into it. So the pet trading update is it's a mixed bag. So that's why I thought I would talk about the pros, the cons, and definitely things that need to be fixed. Let's start with the pros, of which there are a few actually. And I do think that if you're gonna look rationally at this problem, you gotta look at the things that you get and the things that are kind of taken. I think Pet Mastery is one of the best things that they've ever put out. The fact that you don't have to just keep on playing a game in order to, you know, trade a pet, because it's so tedious, it's so repetitive, and you're literally, most people at this point, they just fail the game so they can feed the snack and then keep on doing it. It's just like, if it's not even working as intended, it's like it's a pretty good fix to just get rid of it altogether. Now, if you play a game 25 times, you can just skip it. And I think that's just a beautiful thing. I think another thing that I actually didn't even notice until today, I think it's pretty cool, just, you know, it's worth mentioning at least, every mainline quest now gives 4 pet XP. So for a lot of newer players who might not have the resources or the, you know, the evil magma peas or the mega snacks, I'm not sure how many quests this actually, like, you know, computes to, but I think it actually might be a pretty meaningful thing. You could actually probably train a pet at least like ancient, maybe even epic, after questing through a few worlds, which I think is really cool. So I think that even though you know, the kiosk changes do make it harder to get a pet, it is tons easier to train the actual pet. So it looks like the trade-off here is training is a lot easier, but actually acquiring the pet seems to be quite a bit harder. So now let's talk about acquiring the pet, which I do think is where the cons are. So in terms of acquiring the pet, there's some things that they did that I think they just overshot a little bit. And I think a lot of people agree on this. I'm on the same boat with a lot of people on this. They basically made the kiosk 3 times more expensive than it is right now. So like right now, right? Let's say I wanted to browse a pet, I go to a myth pet, I don't know, Baba Yaga, whatever, you know. Right now there's about 50,000 gold. Now, if you went into test realm and try to hatch this pet, it would be 150,000 gold. Now you gotta look at the reasoning behind this. If it's so much easier to train a pet, it actually would make sense that in order to just not make this whole pet training thing spiral out of control, it does make sense to make it harder to acquire it. But 3 times harder to acquire it, I think that number is where a lot of people have a problem. Now, the other thing that they did is that they wanted to, I guess, incentivize in-person hatching, which I think, you know, that's not a bad thing to incentivize. You always want to make it so that socializing on a game like this, there's benefits to it, you know? And the idea in the test realm notes anyways, they said that they were going to make it cheaper. But it's not. When you try to do a pet hatch with someone, it's like 70,000. So it's almost twice as much to in-person pet hatch, and more than 3 times as much to kiosk pet hatch. And added on to all of that, this is kind of a good thing and a bad thing together. I guess it depends on where you come from. Basically, what they added was like this hatching elixir gold alternative. So basically, if you hatch 2 mega pets, you know, after you, I don't know, spending like a lot of gold or something, you have to spend another 150k to hatch it out. Like, that's the only way. And I guess you could buy a hatching elixir for crowns, but basically, it's 12 hours, and if you don't want to wait the 12 hours or pay the 150 crowns, you're going to have to pay 150,000 gold. So clearly, if you hatch a kiosk pet and also hatch it with gold, you're basically, if you're like a legendary wizard, which your cap is 300,000, you need to be at max gold to make 1 pet. So I think when you look at it from that perspective, I think the numbers just seem really, really high. But let's look at why the numbers are high before I talk about how I would fix it. If you make kiosk pets the way that they are, super, super searchable, so like you hatch a pet like this, you know, you use, I guess, 150 crowns to hatch the pet, and then you insta-train during double pet XP, what you're going to be looking at are people with Peros, hatching elixirs, and energy elixirs, along with mega snacks, making pets at a quicker rate than ever before. Now, I played this game for 10 years. I remember when making a triple damage double resist pet itself was actually quite the task. Right now, if you wanted to make if you did nothing and only made instant pet trading with the way the kiosk is right now, you would have people cranking out pets at a rate like no other, and the people that it would benefit the most are the people with more resources. And this is precisely why I don't think a higher kiosk price is that bad. But I think 3 times is a little excessive. I think what they were going for, if I had to take my best guess, is that it should be 2 times the cost of an in-person hatch. So that means that if it's 2 times the cost, if that, then I think they should put in-person pet hatches. They should lower it a little bit from where it is right now and make it around 30 to 40k, because then it would actually be an incentive to in-person hatch. And they should make the kiosk hatch like closer to like 90 to 100k, if anything. That way, yes, the value that you get from the kiosk is placed at around 2 times a regular hatch, but you also, there's a lot of value in going after someone to in-person hatch, because, you know, it's a lot cheaper. So for that alone, I think the kiosk, it should max out at 100k, not 150k, if you're really trying to, rather than limit by time how easy it is to, you know, hatch a pet and train a pet, like, rather than limiting it by the number of pet games, fine, limit it by gold. But I think 3 times what it is now is just a little too much. The other thing that I think just needs to be done, like, I actually don't mind that there's a gold alternative to hatching, but 150,000, again, it's just too much. I didn't know about the 100, like, Blaze Lifehammer put out a tweet, and I can't believe this. I agree with homie. 300,000 gold to hatch 1 pet out of the kiosk is just too much, because at the end of the day, I would understand if it was maybe like, I don't know, a fifth or maybe a quarter, I guess, of your max gold. Maybe that would make sense, but 300 is just way more than that. It just doesn't, the numbers do not add up. I think the key right here is to make sure that the kiosk is valued above, especially because of how convenient it is to pet train. But I think this was a bit of an overshot, and I think the community should be very clear that this is too much, and I'll join you guys in that. One thing that I do like about their kiosk changes, but I think they might have done a little bit too much, is now when you filter kiosk talents, if you're like, you know, filtering by searching, right now you can put like, I don't know, you can put, like, so many talents. Look at this. You can put, like, all these talents. You know, you can put so many, right? They've seemed to limit it down to, like, 2. I might be wrong on this. I think limiting it down makes it so that you can't make a bunch of super overpowered pets, like quit resist pets, which again, I don't really think should be in the game if you ask me. Again, I think filtering by 2 talents is just too limiting for me as a player, because then it just removes, what I'm gonna do is just, instead of using the talent filter, I'm just gonna go to pets by type and just search through until I find a pet. At least make it like 3. I think if you could search for 3 specific talents, I think people would use that a little bit more. And, you know, maybe you can limit them from just searching for 5 resist talents and making these super OP pets that really, in my opinion, have no business being made. So along with just reducing down, just by a scale of, like, I guess a third or a half even, the price of hatches, and also maybe just adding 1 more filter term to the kiosk, the last big change is, as far as the gold price for the hatching elixir, I think it needs to be scaled to level, because your max gold at legendary is 300,000. So if your max gold is 300,000, then it should be like, if anything, at most, it should be 10% of your max gold. So at max, I guess the hatching elixir price should be, I don't know, maybe like 50k? And at legendary, it should be like 30k, and even those numbers are actually pretty high. And I get it, it's a substitute for a hatching elixir. I just think 150,000 when the pet hatch price itself is already high, it just seems to be way too much. One last thing that I noticed is now energy is up to train a pet. Again, I get that it makes it harder to train a pet, and that's fine and all. I have a huge problem with that because, again, I think it just benefits the people who have the crowns to buy a bunch of energy elixirs. Like, if you're just insta-training and you're spamming energy elixirs, the rate at which you need energy elixirs is going to go up if the energy requirement to train a pet goes up. So, I don't think this is a change that helps players that are new as much as it helps players who have a bunch of crowns. So, again, I think they shouldn't touch energy at all. And if they do raise a kiosk pet hatch, it should be double. It shouldn't be triple. In fact, right now it's actually almost quadruple if you really look at the numbers. So I just think they overshot it. Even though the idea of making it harder to make the perfect pet is a good one, I just think they overshot it a little bit. I think the take-home message of the day is you shouldn't make it too easy to train pets. Because if you do, people will just end up making all the pets that they need to make. And they won't, why would they have no incentive to pet train anymore. So I think when you look at the decisions that go into making a pet hatch more expensive, there are definitely some strengths to doing that. I just think when it gets to the point where it's excessive, where it's so excessive to the point where, like, you know, like you wouldn't even be able to do it practically, that's where, you know, you gotta make a point to say something about it. So yeah, guys, that's a video. I hope by the end of the test realm, it's still a challenge to make a perfect pet, but not unreasonably challenging. So I think the middle ground is somewhere there, and I think they'll reach it. I think a lot of people have expressed a lot of opinions, and that's my input, and that's what it is. That's all I got. But yeah, man, let me know what your experiences with pet training, pet hatching, all of that is. Let me know what your magic number is, I guess. Keep in mind, making pet hatches free is obviously not the solution. You know, there needs to be some middle ground. I'd love to hear y'all's opinions. Let me know in the comments. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Leave us a review. There's tons of links in the description, including my Twitch, my Twitter, my Discord, and my Patreon. Thank you for the monthly love on Patreon. And as always, if somebody has not told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. So stay awesome. And yeah, you'll...